All right, everybody. Lafayette Harris here. I'm sitting here with the wonderful Mr. Emmet Cohen, and we're going to talk about music and teaching of music. Okay. All right. How you feeling, man?
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, thank you for agreeing to get down with me and talk a little bit.
Anytime.
How you feeling? How's everything going on the cruise so far?
Feel good. We out here in St. Thomas.
St. Thomas, a terrible place to be in January.
It's a jazzy place, you know, thanks to Sonny Rollins. So.
Oh yes, that's right, man. That's right. He made it famous for us.
Feels just right.
Ah, yeah, we got to play that tune tonight, just because you mentioned it. That's a good one, you know.
Should, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to ask you some questions about your process of becoming a musician and your practice of piano and the organ. I've heard you on the organ lately, smoking, you know. And can you give me a little background on how that developed for you?
Yeah, I started taking piano lessons at age 3.
Okay.
Suzuki piano lessons, which is a method of learning by ear.
Okay.
Where they put the music then after you're taught the melodies and stuff.
Okay.
So I always say that it kind of lends itself to jazz later on because I learned by ear.
Yes.
So I'm much more of like a oral learner than I am a visual one. But that kind of led me into a childhood of classical piano. And moved from Miami to New Jersey at age 10.
Okay.
Started taking classical piano lessons at the Manhattan School of Music for their pre-college program. So I was doing that pretty seriously every Saturday. And somewhere along the lines, I got interested in jazz. I was playing clarinet and saxophone and band, and heard Charlie Parker and Coltrane and some other kind of music, and started playing some solos out of the Omni book in my lessons, and just heard singers, and was always interested in musical theater as well, and heard these songs, and just did more by ear. And then went to a program that predated Jazz House Kids in Montclair, New Jersey.
Okay.
I grew up in the same town as Christian McBride. It was called Jazz Connection, which later morphed into Jazz House Kids, and that there I got to meet some jazz musicians like Billy Hart and Dave Stryker and Mike Lee and some other people in North Jersey, and they kind of showed me a few things, and I became more interested in it, and just kind of unfolded, and everywhere you turn there's another question to be asked, and I was just really curious and started, I had some other experiences going out to hear music. My dad took me to see Monty Alexander when I was young, and I fell in love with the feeling that he was creating, and got to see Jimmy Smith as a young man too. Then I went to this jam session in New Jersey at Cecil Jazz Club, and I was about 16 years old, and there was no piano player on the jam. It was just organ, and I was like, oh man, how do you do that? And so at the end of the night, they kind of showed me, do bass in the feet or the left hand. This is what the jaw bars do. I was fascinated. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I ended up going and getting my left hand chops together a little bit. Could walk through a bass line while I was playing with my right hand. And so then I went to the jam session, sat in finally, and I was like, oh, this feels pretty good. So I would go to the club, and Cecil Brooks III let me come to the club and practice after school. So I'll go kind of check out the organ and practice, and so I got familiar with the B3 at that time, and it became another dimension to all the things that I do. And yeah, went to University of Miami for school, and studied with Shelley Berg there, amongst others, and from there moved to New York in 2012. The summertime, and I've been there for about 11 years now. All right.
Okay, man. Yeah. Interesting. A lot of interesting things you say, but one of the things that kind of piques me, gets to me, is like that interest of something that you want to try to figure out. If you've experienced something, if you heard something, or you saw somebody do something, in order to learn it. Being interested in it, first of all, is very important, and then what's the process after you became interested in it?
Well, classical piano was always a struggle for me to remain interested in, because it's such hard work.
Yes,
and the
it
notes
is.
have to. I mean, everything's hard work
Yes,
to be great.
sure.
But you know, the goal is to try to keep yourself engaged and interested and progressing at a pace where you feel like you're doing something. And so, you know, then I started learning some jazz tunes. I got called for, you know, maybe a solo piano gig for 4 hours, and I was like, well, do I know enough songs to play 4 hours of music? So then I, you know, that sets you down a path.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, okay, you know, go out and hear these people that are playing all these songs and no one's learning music. Like, that's interesting to me because I come from a classical background.
Yes.
And how do they do that? You know, there's so many questions, and so little by little the questions begin to answer themselves. And I think more than anything else, what I loved about jazz was the community, and is the community.
Yeah.
And it's more about other people than just yourself. It's like, okay, well, I learned all these songs, but now I have to learn how to play with other people. It's a totally different skill. You know, how does the bass fit together with the piano? How does the piano fit together with the drums?
Okay.
How do you present that stuff so it's interesting for an audience? What's the difference between a restaurant gig and a gig where people are paying a cover charge to come here to play? And so those are all questions that kind of developed in my head that I was seeking answers to, and that kept me interested in, you know, getting together with friends after school and playing, you know, or like figured out I didn't have to cut grass for a living. I could go do a gig somewhere, even if it was for tips. You know, we used to play at a noodle shop called Noodle Central on Bloomfield Ave in Montclair, and we would just get dinner and tips, play in the corner, and you know, those are some of the greatest moments, just sharing with my friends, trying to figure out, like, how do you play for people?
Yeah. Did you go through a process where you got your basics together? Like you had to concentrate on, okay, now you talked about the organ. Now, for like sitting at the piano, and you're playing a jazz tune or like a tune by Duke Ellington or something, there's a concept that's different from classical in that you have to make your own arrangement every time you play a song. So you have to know chords, you know, so you got, you know, so I have to teach students, and I mean, some of them have trouble with that concept. Okay, C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7. Okay, they might have heard that, you know, but now it's a slow process for them to play that actual 2-5-1, you know. Do you recall dealing with coming through that process?
Yeah, I remember that moment. It was like play a 2-5-1 in every single key. We do the exercise like C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7. And that turns into the 2 minor, B flat minor 7, E flat, A flat 7, A flat minor 7. And you do that in time. So 2, 3, 4, B flat, E flat, A flat. And I go through in the right hand, playing stacked thirds. So like if we're on C minor 7, we got a C in the bass, and then up in the right hand, maybe a 10th higher, you got E flat, G, B flat, D, and then when it goes to the 4 or 5 chord, you can only move the B flat down to an F, so only one note moves.
So only move the B flat down to A natural.
Yeah. While you move the bass. So C.
And yes.
And then for the next one, then how many notes move for that one? Well, the A stays the same, and all the rest of the ones. So you're in B flat, and the rest of the ones move down, and then to get from that B flat major to the B flat minor is only one note, the D to the B flat. And so discovering how to get from one chord to the other, like which notes move. So that's one inversion, one way of doing it in time. And if you do it where the one chord becomes in the 2 minor of the next cycle, you still have to go through the other 6 because it goes down whole steps. So you only get 2. So you have to do it again, start with C sharp, F sharp. And so practicing in time with the metronome is very important, so you can kind of do those in time. Get all the different ones under your fingertips. That really helped me. And so that's playing the bass, and, you know. And then you got the other way where you're playing that same thing that you're doing in your right hand in your left hand, and maybe playing some octaves on top. So then I have like E, and then you're imagining you're playing with the bass player, so E flat, G, B flat, D, and maybe F octave on top, maybe even with the C in the middle. So, So the octave stays the same on top, those three notes. and then you're doing the same thing in your left hand. So all of a sudden, what you did in your right hand, you also have to do it in your left hand.
That's a great practice exercise.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at some point, we need to go ahead and sit at the keyboard and spell that out so people can see it. But yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
So then you're not locked in your right hand down here. You know,
yes.
you're also locked in your left. And, you know, you got it in your left hand just in case you got a bass player. Because as piano players, we have to fit into a lot of different functions.
Different functions.
And I think for me, when I was learning to play, I would go through all of those things in a semi-orderly fashion, where okay, I'm gonna be prepared to play solo piano with a singer or with a horn player, and then I'm also gonna be able to play solo to play with a bass player,
yeah,
and also play the chords on top. It's a totally different way of conceiving everything. And then if you have a bass player and you got a horn player, then where do you go in the middle?
Right.
You know, to bridge the gap between those.
Yeah.
And the more you do those things, the more they become one.
Yes.
You know, and the goal is to try to fuse everything together. Another exercise that really helped me was to go through a tune and just practice left hand in this kind of Charleston rhythm. So. You know, any kind of tune, and if you can't do that at that tempo, then you gotta slow it down.
Yes.
And so I always think that the left hand has to have some level of second nature to it.
Yes.
Because our brains can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yes.
So
I hear.
If you're playing all the things you are, you know, it's like B flat, B flat, or what's the first chord? F minor, B flat, you can sing it. D flat, you know, you gotta sing. Yeah, these are sauce. You know, I always make the analogy. I should be able to like send an email and still get the, you know, I'm still nailing the chords in my left hand, but I'm answering the same. You know, I'm just messing.
Yes,
out.
I know you got you.
But it should be like almost that level of second nature.
Yeah.
Where you're able to just know where the left hand goes, and then you can split your brain a little bit. You know, you're soloing maybe your left hand answers.
Yes.
You're soloing, and maybe your left hand is that ostinato kind of stagnant thing, or maybe you're playing at the same time. Maybe you're doing a counter melody now, where it's just one note in the left hand, or there's two notes in the left hand, and then as you're more experienced, you'll be able to be more creative with the things that you imagine you can do.
Yes.
And then the wonderful thing about the music is that once you learn the rules, then you're free. You're free to break them. You're free to try different things, and you're free to do reharmonizations. Right. You're free to mess with the density and the textures.
And sometimes not even without even thinking that you're about to do those things, right?
Well, when you're ready, they just happen.
They just happen.
It's like learning to speak. You know, you never really grasp the moment where you go from just knowing words to making sentences. It just kind of happens, and you're like, oh, now I can speak. Yeah. And you know, and then as you grow, okay, I can express myself in different ways. And then you read 100 books in your life, and you're like, oh wow, I'm able to write now. Yes. And those things happen so gradually, and I think that's the beautiful thing is like if you do the work, you learn the language.
I think with music, sometimes people get discouraged from doing it because it is so much work, you know. But you think about how much work we put into learning how to speak the language, you know. You know, they forced us to go to school every day, and you had to read a certain amount of stuff. You had to listen to the teacher. It wasn't really optional. So, you know, if people had that kind of thing with music where they made you do it, you know, that many more people, I think, would be playing, you know. But, you know, lucky for us, we didn't have jobs then, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that you have to keep yourself inspired too. And it's hard. not every day is easy to learn and figure it out. I'll be on the bandstand with George Coleman. I think I'm ready, and all of a sudden he plays a tune I've never heard before.
Oh, man.
And then I'm trying to figure it out, and then it goes up a half step, and then
so it happens all the time with those greats. Like a person like Houston Person, who we both had the pleasure of playing with.
Yes.
He knows so many tunes,
Yeah.
and it kind of expects you to know them too, And so that it gets to the point where, oh man, you have to like. So have you ever had to like all of a sudden figure out a tune you didn't know?
Yeah, I think it happens all the time. And to open your mind up and to stay calm in the moment, I think is one of the biggest tools that I've learned. That like if you get nervous, you start overthinking, and it's very hard to be present in that moment.
Yeah.
You have to know where to look. Does the bass player know what's going on? I mean, lean on him. Or is like the melody something where it outlines the harmony? Maybe I can lean, and then you kind of put together the puzzle and think about things like form. Think about things like key. Where does the bridge go? How do you do the turnarounds? And all of a sudden, like, one time through, 2 times through, maybe 3 times through, you got it.
Yes.
And then you learn like that, you got it forever.
Yeah.
If you learn in a practice room,
right.
You might have to revisit it every now and then, but you learn on the gig.
Yes.
Your senses are heightened. It's a cool thing. No one really talks about that moment of like learning a tune on the gig.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I mentioned someone like George Coleman. He is able to understand that you don't know the tune and play it in a way that outlines the harmony, that teaches you.
Sure.
That's a certain type of mastery as well. And
we have to do that sometimes for the bass player.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And the guitar player,
And that's the cool thing about the music, is we're always all listening to each other, trying to help each other out.
That's right.
And being a great musician means having everyone's back in the band, especially in the kind of music that we play.
That's right.
So I always think about that. How can I have the other people's backs? How can I push them at times? How can I let them lead me at times? And it's like this dance.
Yes. Yes. Very kind of reflective of life, right?
It's totally 100%. It's like there's no absolutes. Really, you're always learning, you're always figuring out, you're always adjusting, and tastes change in a minute. And we embrace change as well. It's the only way to do it.
So you've been in New York, you said about 12 years?
Yeah.
And so speaking of that change thing, okay, so you were like the young cat, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now since then, a bunch of cats have come behind you.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see yourself in the little hierarchy. You see, the older people my age and up and whatnot, and then you see, people closer to your age, and you see people behind you. You see how things have changed. Can you speak on how things have changed in the last 10 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to have a beautiful community of musicians, people that I came up playing with, like Russell Hall and Kyle Poole, and Brian Carter and Evan Sherman and Joe Saylor, a few years older than me, and Yasushi Nakamura was a few years older than me too, but very much my scene. Tavon Pennicott, Godwin Louis, Patrick Bartley, Benny Benack, Veronica Swift. I mean, there's these incredible musicians that I came up with. We were all on this journey together, and that's like, some people in my generation. Obviously, there's a lot more, but there's a lot of people that I spent time touring with who are all doing their thing.
Yes.
And that inspires me, and it has inspired me since I got to New York to be around those like serious music. That's why you come to New York, to be around those serious musicians. And then you stop playing in New York so much, and you get some other gigs, and it's not all about going to the Smalls and hanging out late every night. But that's an important part of the music. And when I was down there, Roy Hargrove was down there, and I got to meet Johnny O'Neill and get close with him, and so many other masters that would kind of just hang out and get to just be part of the scene. And then, the time goes on, and then all of a sudden you see other musicians coming up behind you, like Joel Ross, genius, and then Micah Thomas, piano player, who's incredibly inspirational, and Emmanuel Wilkins, and
this young guy, Julius
Rodriguez. I mean, the bass player with me right now, Philip Norris.
Okay.
He and Julius came up together, so Phil is in the next generation. So now I'm hiring those those musicians, and he's got a friend named TJ Reddick who plays drums, and we've done some stuff together as well. But the thing about it, it transcends the generations, really. You know, I play a lot with Joe Farnsworth. He's a generation above me, but still younger than someone like Houston Person or George Coleman or Ron Carter or someone like that. So it's really my goal to kind of bridge together all those generations and not have it be like, oh, you know, this person's young and this person's old. It's like, you know, we make music and we find a common ground, and we try to inspire each other. We try to respect what came before us, and we try to learn about it, and we try to push it forward in a beautiful way, where we recognize that the world never stops moving, and we you know, become older and we just do what we can. You know, just keep moving, and we keep. I think the real key for me is just to keep spreading positivity, to keep realizing that it's just bigger than any one person or any one band or any one genre or style, and that the music is so powerful. You know, when we go travel overseas and people don't speak English, but you get together and play at a jam session with somebody you can't even communicate with, but you can play Don't Mean a Thing if they ain't got that swing with, and you have this moment. It's like a cultural ambassador kind of a deal. You know, I love that. Ever since we started doing the live stream too, that has been a way to kind of connect with people all over the world. Especially in the way that we do some kind of, we call it Emmet's Place. And invite different people over. So, you know, we'll go to South Korea, for example, and do a concert there, and invite some of the local people to come and play with us and share that cultural exchange, and you know, then put that on YouTube and show the world that. And I think that those are the moments that are even bigger than the notes and the rhythms and all that stuff. To be able to bring some peace and some unity and some love into the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hey man, I really appreciate you sitting out here and talking to me about your experience, man. You know, and anything else you want to say before we go?
Just that I appreciate you and all the things you do for the community, and the fact that you're doing these interviews and documenting this thing. It's important, and just keep teaching the younger generation. And I just love that we have this bond over the great Houston Person, who's taught me so much, and I know you got to spend a tremendous amount of time with him too. And, you know, when you're lost, or when you don't know what's supposed to happen next, either in the music or life, you turn to someone with that wisdom, and they know just what to say. They know just what to play. They know just how to be. And it teaches you how to be. You get that, and then you're able to pass that on as well. So I'm glad we have that in common, and no one will ever be able to take that away from us.
My man.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Oh.
The lights went on right on time. See? What'd you say?
Do I have anything in my teeth?
Teeth.
No, I said nothing in my teeth.
Yes, teeth.
Oh, teeth.